Hello, everybody. Welcome back. I feel like I failed or am failing in the repair department. I've torn that generator all back apart. I'm not gonna. I'm gonna show you something I've done here or should have done that I've kind of lost interest. Is what it is. I think. Uh, yeah, I feel like maybe I'm losing my touch, and but what it is, I've kind of lost interest in repairing things. It's kind of gotten old. It's used to be kind of a hobby, a passion to repair things, and patting it back when it's all running good again. Uh, I realized I have been repairing things like this exact kind of job for 50 years now. I'm getting old. I'll be 62 very soon. When I was 12, I rebuilt my first carburetor when I was 12, like 11 or 12 years old. I remember because I got my first, we was living out in an area called Slate Lake, Pennsylvania. I had a newspaper route um, in Hilly, Pennsylvania. At that age, 11, 12, on my bicycle, loaded down with heavy newspapers. At that age, that was work. That was work. But I used my paper money to buy my first go-kart. And but it was a go-kart frame, with the seat and the steering wheel and the tires and the frame of it. It didn't have an engine on it. Paid $25 for it, and that was almost all the more I made in a month. So yeah, delivering newspapers. It didn't pay real well back then. So I was like in sixth grade, fifth or sixth grade, because I remember then we moved to a town called Freeport when I started junior high school, started seventh grade. So what are you, about 13-ish when you start seventh grade? Yeah, sixth, I was 11 or 12, I think. I guess it depends on when you started kindergarten or in what month of the year you was born. So in that age range, 11, 12 years old, delivering newspapers, buying my go-kart without an engine. A friend of mine, uh, a schoolmate, about the same age. His dad had a shop with all kind of stuff in it, and he tinkered with stuff. He had a little 3.5 horsepower Briggs and Stratton engine, and that was my friend's, not his dad's. I don't know how he came across that. He was growing up to be a tinkerer too, following after his dad. So we thought, well, maybe we can put his engine on my go-kart, and it's just a shared projects, buddies, take turns riding or whatever. Well, I ended up buying it off of him. The engine wouldn't start. We'd put fresh gas in it, and yeah, it had oil in it. And at that age, we didn't know a whole lot about engines, 11, 12 years old. Um, but we tried. It wasn't sitting on it, it was just sitting on the ground. So one of us would like hold the engine, the other one would pull the pull starter. We could get it to spit and sputter and cough a little bit, and it would try to run. It would run maybe for a couple seconds and die. We were so frustrated. We pulled and pulled on that engine, and then we'd go back fresh another day. And what's wrong with this thing? Like I say, at that age, you don't know a whole lot. You're trying to figure it out. Well, uh, we gave up, and but I knew that engine would run. It's like if it would do that, if something's just not quite right. But it just seemed like it would. Something told me it would, and I offered to. But he gave up on it. He's like, well, what's that all gonna do with it? So I offered to buy it off of him. I give him $3 for it. Okay, and back then $3 it might as well be in a 20 today, right? Uh, so I took the engine home. We had a local mechanic. His name was Don Keener. Great guy. Great guy. And I told him what I had. I went down and asked him for advice. I said, I got this engine, any advice? Excuse the traffic. He said, from what I explained, he says, you ought to try cleaning the carburetor. I said, well, I don't know nothing about that. I mean, I knew what the carburetor was, but I'm like, that looks like fussy business to me. He said, get a little can of kerosene and, a little brush, cleaning brush or something. He says, take it off, carefully take it apart. Remember where everything goes. Wash everything up, and then with kerosene. And blow it off, let it dry, put it all back together carefully, just the way you found it, put it back on and try it. And so I figured that out, and I did that. Um, and you know what? It's like first, second pull, it ran and stayed running. I was hooked. I had so much satisfaction out of that. And I went back to the garage and did that by myself. I didn't have, Dawn looking over my shoulder and step-by-step instruction. I just took what he said, and I went back and I says, I did it. And over the years, I have fixed so many, it's certainly not my first rodeo. It's not my, you know, so I'm no stranger to, small engines or even larger engines, over the years. But I feel like I really kind of gave up easy on this one. Um, I think what it was is that love or that sense of or the passion of, like I said, it's a hobby. You get a certain, um, it's gratifying that you was able to accomplish something, and uh, it's but that has diminished over the years, and now it just feels like this dang thing needs fixed. I don't feel like I'd rather be doing other things. I don't want to work on this. So now I kind of have that attitude. So it's not that I don't have the ability to do a better job. I just didn't feel like it, right? So I tore this all back apart. And I'm not going to bore you with a bunch of reassembly here. We're not going to take up a bunch of time. We're going to just kind of jump forward. I'm going to throw it together off camera, and we're just going to see it's either going to work or it's not. A lot of comments, a lot of good comments and suggestions on this. Tried that? Have you tried, various things? A couple comments just don't pertain to this model. For instance, somebody said, the fuel pump diaphragm might be bad in it. This doesn't have a fuel pump, period. It's a gravity fed system only. There's no fuel pump involved. So some comments didn't pertain. Generally speaking, some things do. The tractor does, and other small engines. A lot of small engines do have that, but this doesn't. One or two, couple comments were about the valve adjustment. Have I checked that? And that is in the maintenance thing. That's I think it's every 250 hours of runtime as part of its general overall maintenance. That's a procedure. That's a step, is to check the valve clearance. So I did that. Popped the valve cover off. Checked that with some feeler gauges. You know what? I'm really surprised after all the hours it's on this thing, which who knows how many, but I'm well over 250, probably about 3 or 4 times. They still check and spec. So I was actually hoping they weren't. I was hoping maybe that would be it. But no, they check and spec, so they're good. So I'm going to put the valve cover back on it. Check the spark plug. Okay. Spark plug gap. It's to my surprise, it is also still in spec. I think it's 29 to 32 thousandths. Yeah, it checks right at like 31 to 32. So that's still in spec. I'll give it a quick cleaning where that's going to go back in. So just being more thorough and going through things that I should have done. Back in the day, I would have said, I'd be looking for any little thing possible and just going through it completely. And that's the way I should handle this and do the more thorough job. I forget what else I've done. Oh, yeah, the carburetor's back off. If you remember, this gizmo here was on the carburetor. I really didn't want to disturb it, but I decided to because I couldn't get at. Keep in mind, back when I had to clean the carburetor 5 or 6 years ago, the simple basic cleaning that I did got the job done. It's been running smooth again all this time, ever since. But that wasn't enough this time. I thought, well, I have to get deeper into the carburetor. So I did. I took that off the top, and that way I could access. There's a screw hole right in there to where, it has this tiny little jet in it or has this tiny, which one is it? It has this, and the hole is so small. Okay. It is, I don't know how well you can see that little hole, but it takes this tiny piece of wire to go through it, and it was clear, but it's needed work through, and every last little thing checked. There's also holes that go through the side of it that intersect with that little hole. that had you know, actually it was clear. I was hoping maybe that was the problem. But again, this is just more thorough. I need to go through everything. In the main jet, there's a bunch of side holes in it, and they're all clear. Well, if I hold it up to the light, you can. I mean, trust me, they're all clear. Or should we do this? I don't know if the camera will focus on. See, but still, I ran, and there are 6 that go through one way and 5 that go through another way, and they intersect with a through hole, that goes through the center of it. So just making sure all the jets are open and clear. Again, putting a wire through it. The holes were a little bit bigger than this one, and for that, there's these torch tip cleaners that come in different small diameters. They're really great for doing that. So I've really worked through this in a much more thorough way, and now it's come down to I'm gonna put it all back together, and it's either gonna work or it's not, or it'll still have that little fluctuation when it's at idle speed. Again, above that it runs great. It's just at low idle and eco mode, it just surges that little bit. Pretty annoying. All right, I think I got it all back together pretty much, except for the end cover. I just want to make sure it runs. I didn't forget something something's not terribly wrong. I didn't goof up. I'm gonna fire it up, and before I put that end cover on there, I think need to let it set up for a little bit. I did use the RTV silicone on the valve cover, just a very, very thin layer. That's all it takes, and make sure that sets up properly before we go before oil starts flowing and splashing around in there again. But I think she's about ready. We'll try that in a bit. Hey, you check for any bad rabbits lately? You check for any bad rabbits lately? Where are they at? Where are they at? Go see. She says, no, but there was a bird down there that needed chased off. There was some down there this morning. Man, she took off down there after them. Give them a good chase. All right, we've come back about an hour later. I'm sure that's set up nice by now. It's gonna have to be turned the fuel on a few moments ago, so the fuel bowl should have plenty of fuel in it. Don't see any gas leaks, nothing dripping in or anything, so that all looks good. I'm gonna turn the power on from the other side. I think actually I did that for a minute, and I think it actually repositioned this choke where it's supposed to be. Somehow it knows what it's supposed to do. Let me see. We'll do that again. Do that, turn the power on. There, that little lever went back in position. So, I think we'll give it a try here. You know what? I wouldn't be surprised if it just stays the same. I don't have real high hopes that it's, but we'll see. Ready? Come on. Wow, it's smooth. It's smooth so far. But let's let it warm up a minute. That's when it kind of starts doing it. I'm going to let it warm up several minutes, and then I'll turn the camera back on. We'll come back and check. Well, it's been about 5 minutes. There it sits, running just as smooth as ever. So there must have been still a little bit of something somewhere in that carburetor and one of those little jets. The holes are so tiny. I mean, a speck of, black pepper could clog, some of those smallest holes. So it doesn't take much. So it must have been something in there. I got it out this time with a more thorough cleaning. It has to be what that was, because the valve adjustment was okay. It was in specification. The spark plug was in specification. I didn't do anything else to it, really. That's better. I'm happier. But does it give me that warm, fuzzy feeling and the joy of, that's just kind of gone for some reason. I'm just glad it's done. I don't get much joy out of that sort of thing anymore. It's just another dang job, something that needed work on. Maybe that I need maybe a unique project. Maybe there might be still a little bit of that left in me. I don't know. I think I've worked on enough things. Maybe I've had my fill of turning wrenches, right? I'm gonna get that thing thrown back in the coachman, get it all mounted, strapped down, plugged in, ready to go. Running pretty good. Maybe with any luck, with regular oil changes, I'll get another 11 years out of it, right? Might be wishful thinking. I don't know. It might be realistic. That's kind of is funny that the, I mean, with its age and the hours that are on it, that the valves weren't even out of adjustment. That's pretty telling. Maybe that's, you know, from regular oil changes and taking care of it. Don't know. Don't know. And I think the time has come to replace these old straps that I mounted down with the couple of new ones. This one, you know, the one's actually still good. The one, sun fading is not a big deal. This one has a couple of tears in it, and that should be end of life. Shouldn't use straps that are torn at all. So this one's not going to get used for anything. I have a bin that, you know, I have enough straps if I need one. I'm not going to miss that one. They should not be used if they're torn. Might hang on to this one, never know. But we're going to put 2 fresh ones on it. This is no easy task. It's not terrible, but this tray in here, I do take the front, the bolts out of the front corners, and it will pivot down. But it's still not really easy to get this thing up on it at an angle, and then lift that whole tray and generator up to get those 2 bolts stuck back in there. So I don't like taking it out any more than I have to, but it is necessary, you know, every 100 hours to change the oil. So, all right, I'm gonna get to throw this thing. Yeah, throw it. Let me get this thing back in here. There, I just saved you all from the embarrassing grunting noises it takes to get this thing up in here. It's in. The bolts are back. The bolts are back in the frame here. Plugged it back in. Let me get that cut open. Get the straps on it. Maybe I'll actually plug it in, fire it up, and run something in the coach just to put it through its motions. Oh, where's my remote start? My button thing. That's when all the I's have been dotted, T's have been crossed. It's in. I can start it from inside with the button. I can turn stuff on. You know, it ramps up while I'm doing that. Then it ramps back down when I'm finished, and idles smoothly, and shut it off. And you know, it's going through that little exercise to where, okay, it's done. Okay, it's in a ready position. I'm gonna grab that remote. As a matter of fact, maybe we could finally put this project to bed. It's got a fresh tune-up, right? Pretty much, I think, fully serviced, tuned up, oil change. That thing should be good to go for a while. We'll close the door on that, and as long as the remote works, this is the only thing that matters now. And by the way, I have, not only is the garage plug, or the RV plugged into the garage, this goes over to the van. Okay, so, never mind that. It's a moment of truth, right? Let's step back in case something bad happens. That worked good. Okay, start button. Look at that. It is still pretty quiet, I guess, but once it's in something, just when it's out there in your face in the garage, it seems so much louder. That doesn't seem bad at all, does it? Quiet, smooth, 11 years old with a whole mess of hours on it. We're gonna call that a success. Okay, we're done. We can finally check that off the list and get on to some other things here, which we will be doing shortly. All right? Thanks for hanging out and meddling in the garage, tinkering. We got it. I'll see you next time.